The gun violence effort has to be a comprehensive strategy, and the assault weapon ban is simply one part of it.
Logical to assume that veterans are better suited to handle a gun safely compared to the average citizen.
Millions of dollars in assets so that you could reach an agreement with the Office of Government Ethics.
That is simply an accessory like any other accessory that goes with the firearm, and for the government to tell us that we can't have
Guns in the wrong hands make the most serious problems.
Introduction to sneaky legislation. All right, buckle up folks, because it's time to dive into the world of sneaky legislation. So, picture this. It's 2:30 in the morning, and while most of us are probably catching some Z's, Congress is up to their usual shenanigans. Yep, you heard that right. They decided it was the perfect time to drop a must-pass funding bill. Now, if that doesn't raise a few eyebrows, I don't know what will. But fear not, because when Congress tries to pull a fast one, you can bet your bottom dollar that organizations like the Gun Owners of America, GOA, have their eyes peeled. These guys are like the watchdogs of the Second Amendment, always on the lookout for any sneaky moves from lawmakers. So what do? Well, they roll up their sleeves and get to work, combing through that hefty bill with a fine-tooth comb. They're not just looking for any old pork barrel projects or hidden gems. Oh no. Their mission is to sniff out any concealed gun control provisions lurking in the shadows. It's like a game of cat and mouse, with Congress trying to slip in those controversial clauses while everyone else is sleeping. But thanks to the vigilance of groups like these, we've got a fighting chance to keep our Second Amendment rights intact. So next time you hear about Congress pulling a late-night maneuver, just remember, there are folks out there keeping a watchful eye, making sure they don't get away with anything fishy. It's like a real-life game of politics and intrigue, and we're all players in the grand scheme of things. Gun-controlled studies. Alright, let's talk about where our tax dollars are going, and it might just surprise you. So, Congress has decided to dip into the old piggy bank and allocate a whopping $25 million for research on guns. Now, you might be thinking, hey, that sounds like a good thing, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because it's not quite as straightforward as it seems. You see, this money isn't just going towards studying how to shoot straight or how to clean your favorite rifle. Nope. It's funding research by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the National Institutes of Health, NIH, on some pretty controversial topics. We're talking about stuff like figuring out the ideal age to retire your trusty firearm, conducting safety checks that could potentially lead to stricter regulations, and even looking into the effectiveness of gun confiscation measures. Yep, you heard that right. They're using our hard-earned cash to study how to take away our guns. Now, we don't know about you, but that doesn't sit too well with us. I mean, shouldn't our tax dollars be going towards things that actually make our lives better? Like improving healthcare or fixing potholes? Instead, they're being funneled into research that could end up restricting our Second Amendment rights. So the next time you hear about a fancy new study funded by the CDC or NIH, just remember, it might be coming straight out of your paycheck. And if you're anything like us, you'll want to keep a close eye on where that money is going and make sure it's being used for the greater good, not for pushing a political agenda. Support for anti-gun lobby. Well, looks like Senator Blumenthal has been busy playing Santa Claus. Except instead of giving out gifts, he's handing out cash to anti-gun lobbyists. Yep, you heard that right. $59,000 of our hard-earned tax dollars are going straight into the pockets of folks who want to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves. So what's this lobby all about, you ask? Well, they're all about pushing for what they call unsafe storage laws. Sounds innocent enough, right? Wrong. These laws aim to put roadblocks in the way of responsible gun owners. making it tougher for them to access their firearms quickly in case of an emergency. Now, call us crazy, but we thought the whole point of owning a gun was to be able to defend yourself and your loved ones when danger comes knocking.
The gun violence effort has to be a comprehensive strategy, and the assault weapon ban is simply one part of it. A clear disconnect, and my colleagues are going to have to look at themselves in the mirror, and they're going to have to look at their constituents. Who has promised a vote on constitutional common sense gun violence prevention measures, millions of dollars in assets so that you could reach an agreement with the Office of Government Ethics.
But apparently, Senator Blumenthal and his pals think differently. They want to strip away our rights to keep and bear arms, all in the name of so-called safety. And if that wasn't bad enough, they also want to give the Attorney General the power to swoop in and confiscate our guns at the drop of a hat. Talk about a nightmare scenario. 1 minute you're minding your own business, and the next, the government is knocking on your door demanding you hand over your firearms. But fear not, fellow patriots, because we're not going down without a fight. We'll keep shining a spotlight on these shady deals and holding our elected officials accountable for every penny they spend. After all, it's our money they're playing with, and we won't stand idly by while they chip away at our God-given rights. Impact on veterans' gun rights. Alright, let's talk about our veterans. You know, the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend our freedoms. It turns out, they're not getting their fair shake they deserve when it comes to their Second Amendment rights. So here's the deal. Congress decided to keep the funding flowing for a collaboration between the Veterans Affairs, VA, and the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. Sounds innocent enough, right? Well, not quite.
Do you believe that veterans fought to defend those constitutional rights? Logical to assume that veterans are better suited to handle a gun safely compared to the average citizen.
Encourage veterans to come to VA for their mental health care, and if that trust is broken, then we also look at this as...
Do you believe that veterans have been trained on how to handle a gun?
Yes.
These gun storage maps could essentially turn veterans' homes into targets for government surveillance. And don't even get us started on red flag laws. Giving the government the power to confiscate firearms from veterans without due process is downright un-American. So it's time to stand up and fight for our veterans. They've already sacrificed enough for this country, and they shouldn't have to worry about their own government trampling on their rights. Let's make sure Congress knows that we won't stand for any infringement on our veterans' Second Amendment rights. Not now, not ever. Congressional actions and hypocrisy. Alright folks, let's talk about the good old boys and girls up on Capitol Hill. Our esteemed members of Congress. You know, the ones who were supposed to be looking out for our best interests. Well, turns out they might be playing a little game of do as I say, not as I do. First up, we've got the Republicans. Now, you'd think these guys would be staunch defenders of the Second Amendment, right? Well, think again. Despite all their talk about protecting our gun rights, they went ahead and threw their support behind this bill. The same bill that's chock full of anti-gun provisions. Talk about a slap in the face to all us law-abiding gun owners out here. But wait, it gets better. While they're busy cozying up to gun control measures, they're also beefing up security for themselves. Yup, you heard that right. While the rest of us are stuck jumping through hoops to exercise our Second Amendment rights, Congress is making sure they've got plenty of armed guards to keep them safe. Now call us crazy, but something just doesn't add up here. If they're so keen on restricting our access to firearms, why are they making sure they've got plenty of protection for themselves? It's like they're saying, guns are bad, unless they're protecting us, of course. But hey, maybe we don't understand the ins and outs of politics. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a hefty dose of hypocrisy going on up there on Capitol Hill. And if you ask us, it's high time we call them out on it. After all, if they're gonna talk the talk, they better be ready to walk the walk. No ifs, ands or buts about it. Actionable steps. Alright folks, we've covered a lot of ground today, and now it's time to talk about what we can do to make a difference. Because let's face it, sitting on the sidelines just isn't an option when it comes to defending our Second Amendment rights. So here's the deal. We can all pick up the phone, fire off an email, or even pay a visit to our representatives in Congress. Let them know exactly where you stand on this bill, and make sure they know you're not messing around. Now, we get it. Reaching out to politicians can feel like shouting into the void sometimes, but trust me, they're paying attention, especially when it comes to hot-button issues like gun control.
That is simply an accessory like any other accessory that goes with the firearm, and for the government to tell us that we can't have
unaccountable bureaucrats who are invested in keeping themselves employed by continuing to regulate products.
Critics say if it flies in the face of the current wave of gun violence by working against federal gun control.
Guns in the wrong hands make the most serious problems.
So don't be afraid to speak up and make your voice heard. And here's the kicker. When you do reach out to your representatives, pay close attention to how they respond. Are they standing up for our Second Amendment rights, or are they cozying up to gun control measures? Because let us tell you, action speaks louder than words, and it's time we held our elected officials accountable for theirs. So whether you're a die-hard defender of the Second Amendment or just someone who believes in common sense gun laws, now's the time to take action. Reach out to your representatives, let them know where you stand, and make sure they're representing your interests, not their own agendas. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can ensure that our Second Amendment rights remain intact for generations to come. So let's roll up our sleeves, get to work, and show Congress that when it comes to defending our freedoms, we mean business. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.